Hi, I quit being a YouTuber. The new series I just started 2 months ago called The Untitled Teddy and Ben Show is cancelled, and the promise of high-quality original animations that I release for free on a regularly scheduled basis is completely gone now. The videos that you know me for are officially over, and I have nothing planned to take their place. My reason for leaving is because of how time-consuming it is to make these videos in comparison to the very small rewards I get for finishing them. They're too small to even just keep doing this for fun. If you're in a rush, that's the quick summary, and you can leave the video now. But if you're able to, please hear me out for the entirety of this video as I fully explain why I'm quitting. So in my 12 years on this website, I've only made a handful of successful video series and a large number of failed ones, with the recent addition of Teddy and Ben to the failure pile. In 2010, I first started uploading videos to YouTube as a child. I'd already been making home movies for my family with my mother's camera and a bunch of stuffed animals, and when I discovered YouTube, I decided to try making stop-motion animations with a toy series called Go-Go's Crazy Bones. I uploaded the videos under the name CoolerNow123, and within a few years, I actually had attracted a small following of a couple hundred subscribers. What's interesting about this following, however, is that I was apparently a natural at making narrative work in general. That same handful of fans would always comment on every single video I made, and the videos I made during this era were apparently so impactful that there are still other video creators that emulate what I did 12 years ago to this very day. I thought I was on top of the world, and my newfound career as a child YouTuber had an incredibly promising future. And that promise is exactly what YouTube used to manipulate me. In 2013, I was beginning to slow down on making these stop-motion animations. I was just getting bored of them, and I was preparing to enter high school in the fall. I was recognizing how outdated the videos were getting, and that my childhood was beginning to wrap up. But instead of moving on to other interests, something incredibly nefarious happened. You see, I was still a kid, and I loved the fanbase I gained with CoolerNow123. But the fans were also children my age. I was hooked on being a small star in the YouTube space, and CoolerNow123 was my entire world. But when you start to grow past the video formula that people know you for, YouTube doesn't want you to do that. None of those kids realized what they were doing to me when they told me that it was too soon to stop making these stop-motion videos, begging me to just keep making more. I never realized this until now, but this wasn't a chapter in my career. This was straight up trauma. It's staggering how much this guilt warped my reality, especially so early in my life. I began to equate my self-worth to the work I posted on YouTube. I forged an unreasonable promise to deliver amazing videos to YouTube so that people would love me. I internalized this so much that it would never occur to me to question it, and I would withdraw further into myself to strive for online glory, which meant I unknowingly trapped myself from letting anyone tell me how delusional this way of thinking is. It was a perfect storm of misfortune that sealed my fate for the next decade. So before I continue this video, please think twice before harassing your favorite online creators to continue something that they want to stop doing. I'm well aware that being a public figure means you're supposed to expect negative backlash like this, but newer creators may not have learned this yet, and that doesn't mean they deserve to be emotionally manipulated by their own fanbase. This is especially true if the creator, by some weird circumstances, is a literal child. Because now I'm going to explain how the rest of my life went down while carrying the newfound weight of my YouTuber guilt. So, high school came along, and I knew that I couldn't keep making stop-motion videos, but I had to make my fans happy again. I ended CoolerNow123 and started over with Robot_ in 2014, embarking on a journey to learn 3D animation in an attempt to modernize the main characters of my stop-motion series. After 2 years of grueling learning, I made my first ever 3D series called Idiots.exe and finished modeling and animating a pilot episode by myself. It was released in 2016 and was very well received by the CoolerNow123 fanbase. I successfully fed the beast of YouTube, and set lofty new expectations for my future videos while doing so. I made a second episode and released it a few months later to similar success. But when I tried making a third, I started to buckle under the stress of creating a series entirely on my own. I started to panic as I lost my creative interest from forcing this project on myself. Since I knew no one else that used Blender 3D that could help me, I accepted the reality that I shouldn't be trying to recapture the CoolerNow123 nostalgia anymore. I canceled the show, made a sad apology video about it, and promised to make a new series so that I wouldn't let my fans down. Are you starting to see a pattern here? I initially wrote off this suffering as the growing pains that led to the success of my current channel, Wavetro, but I'm starting to realize that it was actually the beginning of the creator torment I've been in. For years, I would keep trying and failing to make a new series on Robot_, following up almost every failure with an apology video, venting my depression and promising to get things right. When I looked back originally, I framed these videos as me being a crybaby trying to figure out what worked best in my process. But looking again now, I realized that those were actually all warning signs of what I was doing to myself. But of course, I kept telling myself that blind discipline was my only pathway to success, and I managed to suppress whatever was left of me saying that I needed to stop chasing this YouTube dream, whatever the dream was at this point. In fact, here's something I never bothered to reflect on with this backstory until now. What was my life like outside of YouTube? The answer is that it was treated like an afterthought. I would wake up, go to high school, talk with acquaintances, stay distant from everyone, go home as fast as I could, get through my homework, and go back to working on videos. I didn't do any sports, I avoided most after-school activities, and I never thought about a post-graduation life plan. In fact, here's a story I never told before because I hate remembering it. When I was in the 10th grade, I had a friend give me ownership of a game development club that he didn't want to run anymore, and I was all over the idea. I poured my heart and soul into teaching people stuff about game development basics while juggling this YouTube channel, and it just made both of these things suffer. It was absolutely humiliating whenever the year-end showcase for my club would happen, and every year without fail, I would never have a game of my own to show, even though I was the club owner. It was gut-wrenching. It's even funnier how I sometimes roast game developers for spending 3 to 4 years on making a single game, when I should have realized that it's probably because they were motivated by their passion, not by internet praise and relevance. Anyways, I was all in on this stupid idea that I was going to animate for internet strangers for a living somehow. When senior year of high school came around, I let myself get shepherded into some computer science program at a private university on my parents' dime. I picked this major since it seemed loosely related to the game development I was already doing, barely realizing what I was putting myself into. It's no wonder that the shock of being introduced to a college workload in the fall of 2017 was so catastrophic for me. To be blunt, it was the lowest point of my life. The following year, I finally quit YouTube and abandoned the robot_ channel to finish my degree. But then I obviously flunked out of the degree because I didn't ever properly evaluate if an engineering university was ever the right life path for me since I was so busy focusing on YouTube for 12 hours a day. I transferred into a completely different major to finish graduating on time, and this major was so much easier. So much easier that it was the perfect storm for me to suddenly attempt YouTube again in a blind delusion of, oh wow, this new Blender 2.8 update is game-changing, and wow, that YouTube recommendation algorithm is so much better now, maybe it's time for me to come back. So the reason why I know that I'm quitting YouTube for real this time is because the last time I supposedly tried to quit, I never actually acknowledged the real problem. I've been letting myself live in the shadow of the Cooler Now 123 fanbase that guilt-tripped me into continuing YouTube in the first place. This still wasn't obvious to me, even when I returned with a new channel in 2019. So we're in the wavetro era now. My channel started off with this video called Andy and Bulb, which is an animation that I actually made entirely for fun. But the moment I saw YouTube becoming viable again, I sprinted back to the website to upload it and committed a horrible sin of dramatic irony. I promised that it would be a 3D series. I called it K-Folder, and look where K-Folder is now. It was dead the moment I started making side projects, letting my interest for the series fall to the wayside even though I promised more episodes of it. I was back in my vicious cycle of trying various 3D videos until something worked, using my easy college major as my new way to ignore the impending realities of life that only a child wouldn't have to worry about. It was back to square one. And then came 2020. At the beginning of the year in January, I realized what I had in my hands when I made a video called Food Cart, featuring 2 hand-puppeted models of 3D stick figures. I made 4 more videos like it that month. Then I made another 12 in 3 months. Everything happened so quickly, as my subscriber count ballooned well over 4,000, finally beating the old subscriber count of Cooler Now 123. I had done it. I finally proved to myself that I didn't peak in childhood. This major breakthrough came to be known as Stickman 2020, the flagship series of my career. I felt great. It seemed like the start of something amazing. But shortly afterwards, everything came to a sharp decline. You see, the primary way to make money on YouTube is through ad revenue, and it has a long history of being notoriously unreliable, especially towards edgier creators. I had noticed this early on, and preemptively swore off the idea of making a living off of YouTube monetization or sponsorship deals, refusing to compromise my creativity for vague ad-friendliness guidelines that change every other day. In fact, due to revisions of a US law called COPPA in late 2019, YouTube can now inadvertently punish you for being too family-friendly. Any videos that seem too popular among very young kids have their comments section automatically disabled, which is the only source of community for YouTubers. And for whatever reason, animation YouTubers as a whole were targeted by this measure on the flimsy logic that kids love cartoons or something. Seeing this, I loaded up every Stickman 2020 video with lots of curse words. This is why the series was so vulgar. It not only sticks a middle finger to the parents that try to use the internet to babysit their kids, but also to the fundamental source of money that powers the entirety of YouTube. In fact, the next episode of Teddy and Ben was going to reply to this comment here. It was going to be an episode that made fun of the ads that power the free platform-based internet that we all know and use daily, I was even going to read out some of the jokes from the script, but I'd rather just cut to the chase. I don't want to be a walking shill for sponsorship deals, and I find it really disturbing how accepted it is to do so in the YouTube community. I really care about the work I make, and it's very uncomfortable how much creative power you can lose when you start to depend on ad money for a living. I want to keep the goodwill I have with my fanbase, not sell out to the highest bidder. To anyone who's been confused as to why I keep saying no to turning on YouTube ads or taking sponsorships, now you know why. And there's the actual problem of why I'm not a full-time YouTuber after finding my initial success. It may be unreliable and morally dubious, but ad money is the lifeblood of YouTube. After I finished my 17th video of Stickman 2020, I took a month off to prepare launching donation pages on sponsors and Patreon. The only other way to make money off your videos that isn't through ads is through direct donations from your fans. This is usually done through websites like Patreon, where fans donate to you monthly in exchange for extra benefits. The problem is that this income stream alone is very flimsy without a huge amount of fans, which I don't have. I launched my donation pages in June with high expectations, only to find out that having to make these extras to a small handful of donors took away whatever free time I actually had left to make videos. I struggled that entire summer to make a single new video and a handful of rewards, and I ended up shutting down my donation pages in August. I figured that reward-based donations wasn't a viable income stream either, but that left me with no possible income from YouTube at all. And I still didn't acknowledge how much of my daily life I've been wasting to make these incredibly complex videos. I didn't realize it at the time, but my career was already over by this point. I wanted to continue uploading videos for no reason other than the budding fan base I had. I planned on only making videos for fun, which actually meant in spite of the YouTube system. But I was just suppressing at how much I was coping and seething at how I may have ruined my life for nothing. Since August 2020, I've only made 3 new videos to date. After squeezing out the last 2 episodes of Stickman 2020 that winter, I took 2021 off to finish college and find a job. Those of you who watched my second channel will recognize the Superflight or Frugal gameplay on screen, and how important these games were to me at the time. Anyway, sorry about the tangent. It was incredibly depressing to try and fill out job applications after I graduated, as I was very bad at doing so, since I was so busy grinding out YouTube instead of actually learning how to apply for jobs. But I promised my fans I would return to Cavefolder after I got a job, and miraculously, I actually got one that summer. I had to risk my privacy and send in my wavetro videos to get the job, but an alternate reality where I betray my moral compass and turn wavetro into a shilling machine would be much worse. Of course, Cavefolder couldn't have possibly worked out because of how ambitious it was, so by the end of 2021, I pulled the plug on that series too. I instead opted to make and release the first episode of Teddy and Ben, which was released in January 2022. And 2 months later, here we are with nothing again. The amount of time it takes to make these videos is immense. I've sacrificed large chunks of my daily life to even get to this point, and I'm tired of telling myself it's worth it to keep trying. Being successful and original is almost impossible on YouTube when your only ticket to relevance is a faceless algorithm. Yes, I'm glad YouTube gave me a creative voice and helped me discover parts of myself in general, but I've outgrown the site for so long now because this delusional idea of being a YouTuber for a living kept me in a trance for a decade. I still have many years ahead of me though. I still have time to reach for friends and fun before video statistics and metrics. I want to have interests again, and I want to seek more valuable ways to fill my void of loneliness instead of chasing an impossible dream that only benefits the world's second largest website. By the way, you may have noticed that while I was struggling under my giant workloads that I never asked for help. I had a voice actor here and there, and maybe another 3D artist making a backdrop or 2, but my creator persona was overall distant. It was all done by me, it had an uncompromising aesthetic, and it's the personality I've been feeling chained to. I didn't let people collaborate with me on the bigger picture of my work, and it feels like I practically just used them. And it's crushing when you try to branch out and form a team, get their spirits raised because they know you as wavetro, and then crush it all when you place them on the sinking ship that was Cavefolder. I'm sorry to Andre, Zach, and Alex, who I told would get to work on Cavefolder in secret with me, only to burn everything down because I realized my vision wasn't going to be perfect. So, the Untitled Teddy and Ben show is cancelled, and it's not just because I'm tired of it, but because animating an entire show by yourself without pay is an idea that's always doomed from the start. Just like how it was with Cavefolder, Idiots.exe, Turtle and Bird, the Discord videos, the Robot_video essays, and more. Even Stickman 2020 and its more forgiving show formula should have collapsed too, but it survived. I only paid for it with my well-being. Obviously I'm glad something came out of all my years of toil, but I hate living in the shadow of its success, even if I'm capable of exceeding it like how I just did 2 months ago. I'm never going to come back and spend so much time on something like this again without an actually sustainable reason to do so, one that's also in line with my moral compass. I'll still keep uploading any videos I want to make for myself. Teddy and Ben as a polished show may be cancelled, but I could still reuse the characters and 3D assets, The other old things I made might even return too, but I could also never use them again. I could upload something completely new. I could also stop uploading entirely. I don't owe you anything anymore. In fact, look at all these other great hobbies I can try now. I've always wondered why I've never been able to properly try something new, and now I know it's because I was too worried about making sure I had time to finish my videos. Why should I worry about impressing 38,700 strangers when I could just embrace my constantly changing interests and be happy with people I actually know instead? Why should I waste so much effort on perfecting my craft for a dead-end video site when I can apply myself to other things that can take me so much further? And look, I'm sorry to those of you who are going through your own struggles, and you're finding ways to distract yourself by becoming a YouTuber or something similar, but understand that the ultimate lesson I've learned from all of this is that being with friends or family is more important than letting your work take over your identity and determine your worth. Even if the solution I've found for myself doesn't apply to your situation, please remember that there's more people out there that appreciate you than you think. If you can apply the amount of energy it takes to make something, then you can try just as hard to find the human connection that all of us desperately need, both online and in real life. So I quit being a YouTuber, a person who has a specific personality, an expected level of video quality, and a requirement for consistency. If you hate that I've given up on what I've built, and even went through all the trouble to make this long-winded video about it, that's fine. You can just say I'm irrelevant, and then my YouTube peak was Stickman 2020. Because it is, and that's okay. I hope you take my story as a cautionary tale. If you like making videos for no reason other than the simple love of them, and the desire to be as original as possible, then for the love of God, please don't become the YouTuber I was. Before I go, here are the names of everyone that donated to my work via Ko-fi. Yes, that's how you say it, I looked it up. These people thought their names were going to go into the next episode of Teddy and Ben, and not whatever this is. If you're one of the people that didn't even get credited in episode 1, and you're unhappy that there won't be any more of my usual work, please email me and I'll refund you. There's no shame in doing so. Otherwise, I'll put all your names in one more animation that's coming out on Thursday. It's already finished, so don't worry about it being cancelled. I'll also put the names of everyone else that donates to my Ko-fi at wavetro.net/support before Wednesday, March 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. If you've always wanted to have your name at the end of a wavetro animation, this is your last chance to make it happen. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.